What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Kirby Bros Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about Last of Us 2. I've got my friend Keaton Kirby. He just finished the game on the line with me. Keaton. Let's start out, Keaton. Let's start out with initial out of 10 review of the game. I'll let you go first.
No, you can go first.
Okay. Well, I'm going with a 9 point. I'll just go with a 9 out of 10. Just
Really?
Standard 9, yes.
You was feeling a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10.
No, I'm not. Myself is not a. I agree with the Metacritic score, which is sitting at a nice 94 right now. So I think I would probably be in that category. The 9.2 to 9.4, I think, is what I would put.
What is the first Last of Us sit at Metacritic? I'm sorry, guys, everybody. We're doing a bunch of things right now, definitely around the house, and I just had to get my thoughts out. So I coaxed Henry into hosting this podcast. So I hope you enjoy everything else that goes on.
Enjoy the sounds of Keaton cooking in the background. It'll be all right.
Heck yeah. Yeah, like I said, I just completed the game. I got a lot of thoughts about it.
That's good.
So
I do too. So
you
I
said
think
9 out of 10, right?
Yes, I think 9 out of 10, and I think I agree with the Metacritic score, which was a 92 out of 100.
92?
It's a 90. It's at a 94, but I think I would have it at like a 92.
Got you. Well, honestly, I'd probably say a 7.
A 7?
Yeah.
Now,
during this process, I remembered, and I don't know if you recall this, because this is a strange game, first of all.
Yeah, so don't do any spoilers right now. We'll just go not spoilers for a little bit.
So, there was a game outlet. I can't remember if it was a website, if it was G4. I can't remember what it was. But they used to do this rating system where they took everything in, and they weighed everything in, and then they gave, like, your final score. So they would be like graphics, sound, you know what I'm talking about, like story. I can't remember what it was.
The X-Play rating. The X-Play rating system, I believe, is what you're talking about.
Game Informer does something very similar to that right now, but they don't
used to.
They don't base their ratings off that though. They just say like they give you an idea of what the sound is and where it holds up, and kind of like all that good stuff. So,
yeah, I like the plus and minus review score type things too.
Yeah, so based off that, and this is just going into my 7 out of 10 in a way. Like graphics is 10 out of 10 for sure.
Oh yeah. These
animation
are the best I've ever seen.
Yep. Well, I still think Red Dead's a little bit better, and
don't. I just finished Red Dead 2 and I played it in 4K. I do not think it looks better than this game.
See, I even booted up my Xbox One just to see if my thought process was right about this, and the fact that I seen a wolf chasing a deer in the forest with sunlight beaming through. I don't know. Like Red Dead 2 to me is way more of a let's say technical piece of work.
I don't necessarily agree with that, but I respect it.
Hey, that's good. Like regardless, God of War, Last of Us 2, and Red Dead 2 are probably the best looking games that exist on current platforms.
Yep, agreed.
Hands down. Gears 5, I would say, is the close. It's in there, but I don't think it's quite there yet. And the reason why I say Gears 5 is someone will get that in a minute. But so saying that, like graphics 10 out of 10, sound 10 out of 10. How do you call it? Performance 10 out of 10. Because I really think like Troy Baker, Ashley Johnson, Laura Bailey, all of them, man, they played their butts off, dude. Like, what's her name? Abby in this game. Like.
Yeah.
I don't really, like you say, like her as much of a character until you play through her, and then you see where she comes from. But also, This is where I'm getting my 7 out of 10 because of Abby's character, to be honest with you. Yeah. But great performance, regardless. Great performance. So, like, all of those are like 10 out of 10s. But the part that gets me, and the reason why I bring it down to a 7 out of 10, is because they literally just evolved The Last of Us 1's gameplay. And what I mean by that is
I like Last of Us
1. Yeah, you're true, but it's still kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, but like,
I understand it to a point.
People were saying it's better than Metal Gear Solid 5. It's not. Metal Gear Solid 5's gameplay,
I didn't play Metal Gear Solid 5.
on the sticks, way better. And this is what I'm kind of getting at, is gameplay-wise, like I says, that's where I'm bringing down a notch. Now, the settings and some of the environments they set up for you doing your gameplay, and that's where, like, this is so hard to talk about, because, like, some of the areas, dude, and the way they make you go through the areas are 10 out of 10s. But, honestly, playing through this, and this is what I'm talking about, this game could be cheated all the way through. You can make pipe bombs, and where you can make trip mines, or whatever they call it on the Ellie side. You can shoot one bullet and put it down, which is a sensory kind of thing. They come, blow up. You can walk to that next spot, put it down again, turn around, wait. They'll walk over there. They'll blow up and do it again. And you can pretty much clear almost every area 80%.
Yeah.
And I'm not even kidding you. To me, so just saying, like, I understand like a lot of people probably don't do that or even tested the game like that. But, I mean, it's kind of a problem, to some extent.
Yeah, I never really ran into that problem, or maybe I'm just not that smart, but I never ran into that problem because I never had enough materials to make it, because it seemed like the same materials that you used to make health in the game were the same materials that were used to make the mines and the different weapons.
But you can find medic kits. So every time I would find like a medical kit, and there's only like 2 times in the game where I actually had to manually heal because I was like afraid of dying, if that makes any sense.
Oh, I had to do that a lot.
I did read something on the internet, and I know this big wide web here, and it did kind of say, hey, like, play this game on harder difficulty, which I am doing. I'm going to do New Game Plus, which I guess is kind of like defeating the purpose, because I guess you come in with all your upgrades. But with that being said, I'm going to do a New Game Plus, and I'm going to put it on the hardest difficulty to see kind of like if it actually adjusts it to where, because the article read pretty much saying this game is one of the best combat games, best enjoyed if you play it on the hardest. So that's my thought process on that.
I thought it was hard on normal, but
well, this is one part.
Maybe
so
I'm
the game,
just
like,
bad.
and I mean, I don't know how, like, and then it goes long. I don't care what people say, but it is long.
I agree.
Like, if you keep playing the game, you kind of like, wait a minute, what's going on? Is we going to
There's a lot of false finishes to the game too. Not getting into spoilers or anything, but there's a lot of false finishes where you're like, is that it?
That is true.
It's not it.
Now,
there are scenes in the game where it will fade to black, and you're like, okay, it's going to end, and then it doesn't.
That is true. But I do like the narrative structure, by the way. And like I said, we'll get into the story in a minute. Like, I actually enjoyed kind of like how they did the Ellie and then into Abby kind of like storyline kind of thing. I thought that was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But like the whole Santa Barbara thing, when you actually get down to the Rattlers, and this is like a good point, and I've read a couple articles and watched a couple videos.
There's now, since we're already at the Rattlers, talking about the story structure here.
But trying to like kind of put.
So spoilers starting now.
Sorry guys, but trying to put it all together, like. Well, this is not too much. I guess the Rattlers part's a spoiler, but that whole part, this goes into the part a bit of game being a little too long. That last part, with I guess you could say the Rattlers. It almost seems like an add-on or an addition that really didn't have to be there. It really did. Because it didn't flesh out.
Though. It really it honestly felt like somebody said, I want to get a different setting in this game, so I'm just going to put it right here.
Right.
And I liked it because I was like, oh, cool, this is cool because it's a different setting, and you get a different gun and you get different stuff.
Don't get me wrong, the setting's cool, the playthrough's cool, but what I'm getting at is like, the Scars or the Seraphites, what do they call them, and then the WF, the Wolf, are so fleshed out through your Seattle playthrough. You can actually come to a sense and you can kind of understand why these people are acting out of their means to do what they're doing within the concept of this game or the confines of this world. Like, you're like, okay, I get that. Like, I completely. But then you get to the Rattlers, and it's just like, oh, here's another group, by the way, but we're going to really flesh them out all the way. You're just
I was about to say,
idea.
I thought you were saying that about the Rattlers, and I was like, I'm going to be honest, Keaton, I don't know nothing about the Rattlers. I think they were cannibals, but I had no idea.
Well, not like, what is the point in a world that's so dystopian, more or less? What is the point of killing so many people and holding prisoners, first of all? So, like, a lot of that narratively structure speaking, like, I just didn't agree with. Now, this is my biggest part, and this is why I bring it to a 7 out of 10. Because, like, the gameplay, graphics, all of that, like I said, 10 out of 10. I was like a little bit long.
I agree.
But the story, it killed me, man. Like, it is literally I don't know what was happening, and I know there's probably different opinions, but
Mhm.
and I'm hoping in a way you can enlighten me on this.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like I know Neil Druckmann was one of the bigger writers, but I feel like it was Murphy's Law over and over and over and over again. And it reminds me even of Uncharted 4.
Explain what Murphy's Law is real quick. I'm sure I know what it is, but
Murphy's Law is everything that can go wrong. Yeah, Murphy's Law is everything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Okay.
So it's the same concept of like.
I mean, Uncharted could be explained that way too.
That's what I say. Uncharted 4. Every time it grabs on a ledge, the red ledge breaks. Every time it's a rotten piece of wood, the wood breaks. Every time it's a red swing bridge, the bridge breaks. Yep. I get it. I understand that. But literally, and this is what I mean. If the action that was taken in the very beginning of the game by Abby's character never happened, you would have just a different kind of world. You would have the whole town. I can't remember the town name that Joel lives in. Jackson. Yeah. They would go on their merry way, and the wolves would go on their merry way. Now, they would still have the altercation with the scars, more or less, but that would pan out, and you would never have any of this, I guess what you can say, conflict. And this is the problem that the story falls on, because Neil Druckmann and the so many interviews, they talk about the cycle of violence. And I understand that's the theme of the game, because Abby at one point, I can't remember. It's crazy. I just beat this game. But she has a dream. And, of course, the dream is she wakes up and it's the two scars hanging that you end up befriending, more or less. Right. And then that same dream turns into where her father, more or less. Actually, that dream's 3 times, because the first time is her father dead. She finds it. Yep. It's the scars. And then the third time it's her father kind of like more or less standing on his 2 feet, alive and with open arms. Right. And it's almost like she comes to a conclusion with what was more or less holding her down, or kind of like a seed in her mind that was controlling what she was doing. Right. And that's hinted at a lot, because her and what is her boyfriend's name?
Owen.
Owen. Yeah, I actually liked Owen, by the way.
I thought he was a good character.
He's probably one of my favorite characters.
Mine
but
too.
Like, he even uses it on her, because at one point she was like, once they found the location, she told him, like, we're doing this together. You told me to do this. And he's like, yeah. And then vice versa, he says the same line to her, more or less. Yeah. It's a lead. We're going to see.
She realizes how stupid that sounds.
Right. But so if that never happened, like I said, they would have went on their merry way. And this is the problem I have with the narrative structure of this game. So you start this cycle of revenge and the cycle of violence. And Neil Druckmann, again, alludes to this multiple times, in multiple interviews, all this stuff. It's kind of like the main theme of this game, and they come to a resolution with this game. Mm-hmm. But where it falls apart, and it bugs me to no end, is when you're playing as Ellie, you literally murder more than hundreds of people trying to get to your solution.
Yes.
When you're playing as Abby, it's the exact same thing. Yeah. So you're taking the cycle of violence, but you're just doing these 2 characters. But, and this is a good example, is when, spoilers, of course, we're in the spoiler mode, Jesse gets shot in the face.
Yes, he does.
Why is Jesse's parents, who was back in Jackson, fine with the fact that he got shot in the face by a wolf member? Yeah. Why are they cool with that, but yet Ellie goes on this rampage of murder? You see what I'm getting at? So, like, to me, the narrative, it just constantly falls through in itself, because every person that she murders, because if you're really truly talking about this, every person she murders, she has an adjacent person who feels the exact same way she felt about Joel and the same way Abby felt about her father. So just because they come to some conclusion that ends their cycle, it does not mean that, Chris, who over here was murdered by some, or let's say Ellie during some portion, now he's got a vendetta. But wait a minute, so does Alan. So literally, I think the narrative just collapses on itself, because it makes 0 sense that you just isolate 2 people, even though it's a character-driven game. Yeah. And you wrap the story around that, but technically within this world, every single person is going to feel the exact same way about the same person that just happened to.
I don't think that's the message, though, to me. But keep going.
Well, I'll go into it. Like, that's where the story, I think, like I said, it collapses on itself. That, to me, it's what it feels like. Because it's just like, you get to some point where them 2 have resolved their issue. Yeah. Kudos to them.
I've talked to other people who think that Abby resolved her stuff, but Ellie didn't, because they think Abby is actually happy because she got to kill Joel, and like she doesn't. To them, they don't think that she showed any emotion after that said that she showed any regret for doing what she did or anything. It was just that,
Well,
she won, and then all of her friends got killed and stuff, and she didn't even care either.
Well, I think she did care, and I think that's
what I thought too.
Actually, Abby's character and the character arc, because if you really want to boil everything down to the way I look at it is, the Last of Us 1, you play as Joel, who is a protagonist, but yet he's an antagonist at the end of the game.
I agree. I think
to some extent,
he's an anti-hero. He's
right.
He's not a hero. He's not a good guy. He's just a guy, basically.
So, Last of Us 2, you play as Ellie, and she's kind of like seeking revenge for Joel.
Yep.
Now, long story short, not long story short, sorry, we got a lot more to go into, but this is a big spoiler. You find out, like, at one point in the game, like, I had this feeling, and it doesn't tell you right away, but, like, the last words is where she's like, I don't, excuse me, guys, for his cussing, but she's like, I don't need your fucking help, to Joel, because they're at a group gathering.
Yeah.
And that's near the end of the game. Right, that's what I'm saying, spoilers. So, or it's technically an E3 trailer, but yeah, it cuts that part off. So when that happened, I was like, oh man, I kind of get why, like, that's the last thing she said to him. And of course, she probably had, this mass amount of love and, for him to some extent. But she was really mad because she took something away from him that she couldn't have. So when that kind of happened, I was like, okay, I kind of get, like, maybe that's why. Because she's so angry at herself.
Yeah.
For the way things left, that there's only one way for her to kind of conclude it in her mind. But then you find out they actually did resolve it to some extent.
Yeah.
Then you're like, okay, well, maybe not. And then it just turns back to the point,
I agree. I had that same thought when the cutscene at the end of the game, which is the one that you're talking about, which was a great I loved all the flashbacks. All the flashbacks with Joel and Ellie were incredible. I loved them all. Cried at most of them, but, they were good. But that final cutscene, I was like, well, if he forgave you and everything, and, like, you got your resolution,
right? Well,
like,
okay,
it's weird knowing that, and then
but
knowing everything that happened before with her hunting down and killing everyone, blah blah blah.
That's true. But here's the next. So I can keep diving in this. So Abby's character, by the way, she is hell bent for 5 years, more or less, on taking Joel down because it's her father.
Yeah, they have, like, no leads.
She goes to this organization called Wolf that's in Seattle, and she's in there loosely 4 to 5 years, right? It's kind of after the Fireflies more or less disbanded after what Joel did.
I thought it was 7 years.
Huh?
Well, isn't it 7 years?
No, it's only like 4 or 5.
Are you sure?
Because I think it was 2014.
I thought at the start of the game it said, like, 7 years later or something.
Regardless, some amount of time. That's just going to prove my point somewhere. So during this amount of time, you find and you meet all these people in this organization, including Owen, who at one point, obviously you have some problem with, loving him or him loving whomever, and you just can't ever get together, But you find these characters, and they call them like the Utah Crew or something like that. I can't remember what it was. But you can tell that they have a bond, more or less, that is distinguishable between the whole Wolf organization. For sure.
It's Owen, Mel, Manny, and Abby and Owen.
I think Manny's the one, by the way. I love Manny. He was a great character.
And I really enjoyed Manny. Danny, who no one even knew who that was, but
so a little bit long. Like,
do you remember that scene? Do you remember that scene where you walk into the thing and they're like, oh dang, it's Danny? I legit was like, who's Danny?
Oh yeah, where he's like playing a PSP Vita or whatever.
No, he was like he was the kid who tried to shoot him. No, that was Manny who almost shot him. He was one of the guys who had the hat on that Ellie kills at like the very beginning.
Right, and I can hardly remember because
he was at the very beginning of the game,
or whatever.
Like very beginning of the game, and then 20 hours later, they're like, "Remember that guy?" And I'm like, "Who?"
But so she finds these 7 people that, maybe it's not going to be a father's love. Now, again, how is love measured? But she literally, on her father's name's sake, jeopardizes all 7 of these people's lives. And spoiler, they literally all die.
Yes.
Literally. And they pretty much die in a gruesome way. Like,
yes, all of them.
So you're in your head, you're like, the cause does not justify it at all.
No.
So, like, how do you hold this grudge for so long, but then your 7 friends die, and that grudge or it's like, oh crap, Manny's dead. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's no grudge there. But then she turns around and she meets these two more or less runaway scars, and literally it's a change of heart within 3-day period. So that's another problem I had with it. I'm like, okay, I can understand some character growth here, but in a 3-day period, she goes from holding a massive grudge to where she literally risked everything, including her friends' lives, to murder, not even murder, torture, to be honest with you, this one person. And then all of a sudden, these people who have been killing you for years, and you've had an altercation for years, you have a change of heart. So narratively, to me, it just made no sense. I understand if it was seasons, like maybe in the first Last of Us, so where her character could have some growth, but it's literally a change of heart. It's a turn of mind. It's like Yu-Gi-Oh! Play the change of heart card, and next thing you know, she's like, I don't want to kill you, man. I understand because you are a girl, but you want to be a boy.
She was beaten to death, and she said, save Martha. And she said, why'd you say that name?
Hey, you're true to that. And now with that being said, I will say this right here. I know that I said something that would kind of lead people to think, talking about Liv. I actually, because I know a lot of people were kind of really upset about that whole Liv part with her being the SJW, whatever narrative they keep pushing. But
I didn't even notice it, honestly. I played the game, and then my brother actually, he's playing it too, and he asked me, he said, is this dude? He said, is that kid a dude or a girl? He said they keep referring to, they called him a wife, and then his name's Lev, and he looks like a dude. And I'm like, I think he's trans. I said, I think he's trans, and Kyle was just like, oh, okay. It doesn't affect the plot in any way.
Well, no. Actually, it does. It affects the plot overall. And
How?
that's actually what I think is one of my favorite part narratively in the game. Because they are more or less a cult or a hard religion, and there's no such thing as trans or being, from my understanding, I'm assuming you can't be gay to any extent. Yeah. And I mean, like, gay and or male gay or lesbian or whatever you want to call it. So, like, for that person, for Liv to act out that way and shave their head because they think they're a boy and they want to be a warrior, that goes against everything that they stood for.
Yeah, but also his sister was a warrior. Did you miss that part? That his sister was a warrior.
Right, but it alludes to maybe the young.
That's why it didn't matter to me.
Well, I'm just saying, like, the reason why they're hunted. That's the whole narrative point.
Yeah, that's the whole reason that they were. Yeah,
they were being hunted, and truthfully, to some extent, like regardless of what people think about the writers, that's kind of a strong take because even in our modern day society, there's people that will, push people to the side because of choices like that, and that's wrong. Yeah. I understand that, and I think. In some extent, that's a reflection even of modern society.
I do. I agree.
And I understand the sister's love for going after him. And then it goes just by saying the cult-like mentality. The mother, literally.
It's the apocalypse. So, I mean, that is no surprise for me either.
Now, that is kind of something interesting, and that's a different conversation. But, like, when you're in an apocalyptic world, I know this sounds really messed up, but, like,
you're going to find people to blame.
Not people. I'm talking about just sexuality. Like, at that point.
Oh, yeah.
I hate to say this, and people, if anybody hears this, but even, like, you can, I don't know. Like, I feel like your gender and your sex actually plays a role when society depends on it, if that makes any sense. I know that's really messed up to say, but, like, if you only have 1,000 people left on Earth, and then 500 of them choose to be same sex, then guess what? Mankind ends. That's all I'm saying. So, like, I understand how, like, that cult and that group could be extremely against kind of things along those lines, within the setting of this world. But it's funny, though, because Jackson, you had, as Elliot would say, a bigot, but, like, Joel was accepting, and that community was accepting of it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, they weren't really technically saying, this is your right to bear a child, whereas Liv, or Lily, whatever her name was, at the end of the day, it was her right to bear the child of whatever elder she married. And of course, she didn't feel that in her heart, and she felt she was X, Y, or Z kind of thing, and she wanted to get away from it, and that's what caused their whole cycle. And then for some reason, it befriended Abby's, which then again, like I said, going back to it, like, it's a change of heart at that point. Like, I'm just like, maybe she saved your life, but you should just parted your ways and be done with it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
So that's the only reason why, and maybe, like I said, I'm listening to Spoilercast and stuff, and it's really funny because a lot of the Spoilercasts that include, like, Troy Baker, Ashley Johnson, even though Druckmann, they talk about the overall plot, but they're talking about more of the performances and the characters and the characterization of these characters
In the actual plot.
and the actual plot. Because like I hate to like unless someone can sit there like to me you can't really poke holes through the plot because it makes sense. Between Ellie and Abby, it makes sense. Even in the conclusion, it makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is the theme, because the theme collapses on itself when you literally look at, for instance,
any other character.
Nora's boyfriend for the Wolf Organization. Of course, it doesn't say it, but what if she does have one?
Yeah.
Hypothetically, the Jesse's family. What if he has a younger brother and he holds that grudge? You see what I'm talking about? Like, you have all these threads based off the thematic plot that you put that spread so long that the cycle of violence does not end. But yet your game is about ending the cycle of violence. So like you do not end it at any point. All you're doing is literally spreading it. And you're adding all these, even like, and it even makes it worse when in the game they make the AI characters that you kill, they name them, and the person like, oh no, Joe just got shot.
Yeah,
she's over here. So like it literally makes it. So I don't know. I just think like the plot collapsed on itself.
Freaking burned him with a flamethrower.
With that being said, I'm gonna give you your platform because I want you to see if you can change my mind on this. But
all right.
This is my This is my ending of the game, and I actually felt this was going here.
Okay, go.
Abby finds the Fireflies. Okay, we think she finds the Fireflies. A lot of people think that maybe that radio call was actually the Rattle or something was coaxing her.
Oh no, it was the Fireflies because that was the base. Right. I think Neil Druckmann already confirmed it too.
So, assuming that she found the Fireflies, and of course, spoilers, the end screen is you actually landing on that island where the Fireflies base is.
Yep.
And by the way, this is what I told you Last of Us 3. This is exactly what Last of Us 3 is going to be. I thought it was going to get to the point to where after you saved Abby, she stopped and said, look, I know who you are. I found the Fireflies. It's a possibility we can cure all this. And we can end this madness. And to me, that would have been a resolution on number 1 and number 2. Because you tie the bow on the whole number 1 and the whole number 2 as if literally Ellie becomes that point to where she becomes a cure, more or less, for The Last of Us 2. And she actually ends the cycle of violence because we can actually start rebuilding modern society, which is what the Fireflies is after. That is a conclusive story. That is exactly what I thought was going to happen. Of course, it didn't happen that way. And I was like, so more or less, to me, The Last of Us 3, because I texted you about this, I think is going to be set up is literally she's going to find the Fireflies and be like, hey, that girl, by the way, that has the cure, I know who she is and I know where she is.
Yep.
And I think that's going to be the whole Last of Us 3 is if they do The Last of Us 3, is they're going to pretty much invade Jackson and they're going to find Ellie and they're going to force her to the cure instead of her choosing herself, which she chose at the age of 13, by the way.
Yep.
Which makes it even more potent and poignant, and to the point to where the justification of her character that she would take this greater good after sitting on the truth for what 4 years, you know, sitting on the truth that she knew that Joel took from her to actually come to that state of mind and actually cure and hopefully push this world forward to make a modern society. To me, that would have been like, okay, this story was wrapped up. It's great. It's phenomenal. Instead, you're just like, damn, Ellie is way worse off than if she ever went for them, personally. Abby is way worse off if she'd ever murdered anyone, personally. So, like, it just, I don't know. It was just like, there's no, I don't know, resolve, to be honest with you, with either of them. And it was just like, you guys just did stuff that actually had no merit, no weight to it. And you just wasted life, and you wasted yourself, and you wasted your energy. That's how I felt about the story. I mean, that's it.
Okay. So how I came to the story, just playing it through and everything, with you saying that the message is everyone's going to come and kill everyone for revenge. I don't think that's the case. I think it's showing how people deal with revenge and wanting revenge differently. You know, I'm a Christian guy, so I believe the verse of the Bible that says vengeance is mine, so don't take it into your own hands. And I think this game pretty much confirmed that, because if Ellie would have left shit alone. Abby would have died at least 3 times. I mean, like, no doubt about it. Like, she would have died multiple times if Ellie hadn't done anything.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do I mean? So if Ellie hadn't have went on her little crusade to kill everyone, Abby still would have went to the island to save that kid or whatever, and she still would have went to the Rattlers and gotten tied up and died and starved to death. If Ellie had let her go at the end, she would have died on her own.
But Ellie never saved her, though. Except for the Rattlers would have killed her, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If Ellie hadn't have saved her, she would have died.
Ellie never saved her.
Yes, she did. At the very end of the game. Okay, she cut her down off of the thing.
Well, no. But that does not... No. So I understand what you're saying. But, for instance, if Ellie never did what she did, Manny never got killed.
Yeah.
Multiple other ones never got killed.
Yeah. So, but I'm saying for Ellie's revenge. Ellie didn't really want to kill those other people until...
She wouldn't have.
Because she wanted revenge on Abby.
In this case, in Abby's case, when she went to the marina, she would walk right to a boat. And she probably would have got to Liv before Liv ever got to their mom and dragged them back without actually having... Was her name Nora? Whatever her name is. She probably wouldn't have been killed. Isaac probably wouldn't have been killed.
Yeah.
So then you're just getting into, like, hindsight 2020. And I mean, I understand what you're saying, but, like, to me, it's just, like, at that point in time, because you're saying the decisions that are made by Abby, because technically they don't have anything to do with what Ellie's going on at the time. But if you actually listen to Ellie's part and even Abby's part, you hear like, oh, there's shots at the marina. There's something happening here. There's something happening there. Because they're coexisting at the same time. And these people are dying at the same time.
Yeah.
So, yes, Abby probably would have still went to the island. I guess you could say that. I guess her actions, would have probably stayed the same. Because I guess she would have still met Liv and Nora getting killed.
Yep.
But, so, I mean, I guess I can get that to some extent. Yeah.
Yeah, my thing is, to me, the game is true because it's if you are so consumed with revenge that you don't care about anyone else, that's going to lead to bad things, and that's what happens on both sides. Now, is that a encouraging story? No. Is that even a pleasant story to play through? No, not at all. It is not a good, fun time to be told that getting revenge on people is fucking bad because in every other game we've been told that it's great. Take the God of War franchise. In every other game franchise we've been told best thing in the world.
God of War, by the way.
Yes.
Just gonna be honest with you, because we actually talked about this. So God of War 1 through 3. Yes, he is seeking
That's what I'm referring to.
On the Greek gods because of what happens.
Yeah.
But Kratos finds his own resolve and resolution through some period of time, and he actually comes to a sense and actually lives a livelihood and a change of person and character that no one would have ever expected out of Kratos.
Yeah.
And then if you really play through like God of War, the actual game, and this is where like we were talking about the Metacritic. So God of War is at 93 and Last of Us 2 is at a 94. I have zero idea in my mind how God of War is not a better game than God of War and then Last of Us 2. And I just don't get it. Because first of all, it justifies Kratos' change of heart. It turns him into an actual character that has multiple shades other than revenge and just being straight anger.
Yes.
It sets up in crazy amounts of plot, in crazy amounts of foreshadowing, and crazy amounts of just story and plot structure that you're like, wow, what the heck are we listening to?
I completely agree with you there.
It grieves you all kinds of other characters, and this is the thing that kills me. This is where why I say like God of War is like, so God of War comes back and it refined a combat system that, first of all, God of War 1 through 3 has one phenomenal combat system. Again, very heavily based off of like old Japanese games like Devil May Cry and stuff like that. But they were like, no, we're going to do it our own way. We're going to do a single cut. We're going to show you a different way that we can do this combat. And dude, it excelled. To me, right now, God of War is the peak action game, and there's nothing that has touched it.
I agree.
Last of Us 2, like if you want to right now, you can go play Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah.
and you can get an experience that's probably better, to be honest with you. You can go play Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which people couldn't stand. They have this new update with the stealth experience that, I hate to say it, is probably better. Do you see what I'm saying?
I mean, everyone has different opinions, though.
So then you put it on the story, and then, like I said, the story, like, and this is what you're talking about, there's parts where it can fall on itself. But continue on, sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want revenge tales where the main goal is to kill the other person, which I had that same goal, and the killing of Joel obviously upset me, but it's not like Joel leaves the game from that point. He's in pretty much every hour as a flashback or something, besides when you're playing as Abby. He's in the game for the entire experience, so it's not really a big deal. You don't play as him, but to me, it really didn't matter to me because he was still around. It just wasn't.
Now, I will say this, by the way,
which I didn't like. I mean, I understood the way they killed him and everything, and it was to make you pissed off at Abby, and I think it was kind of crappy to make me play as Abby after killing the beloved character or whatever, but in terms of the game, I'm going where the game leads me, and I'm trying to understand. I do want to know the background of this character. I've always loved the idea of, hey, you're going to play a villain. I've always loved that idea, and obviously I'm playing as a villain here, trying to understand why she did what she did and who she was, and everything that goes into it. And as far as the cycle of killing, though, not everyone takes revenge in the same way. A guy takes my parking spot, but I'm not gonna go run up and shoot him with a gun. Now there are people in the world who would do that. And obviously that has consequences when you do that, and the game shows that it has consequences when you're an asshole. So
yeah,
it's on both sides, no matter if you're in the right or if you're in the wrong. There is no heroic aspect of the game, and I think that's more realistic, and no one's deserving of a great death. So I mean, I hate to say it, but the most perfect man on the world was crucified. So I don't think that Joel deserves any more of a good death as I do.
Now, you got a lot of points in there, and I agree with a lot of this. So, by the way, Abby's, I guess, reasoning of killing Joel, I do understand that, and that's justified.
It's the exact same as Ellie's.
Like, the whole time spent that you can't come to some conclusion and understand, like, my father was killed, it is what it is. And first of all, by the way,
they needed that scene. They needed that scene where, like, she was like, he killed my father, and then Ellie would be like, you killed mine.
What was your father's name? Joel. Oh my God! Names.
No, like I was thinking more like Marvel Civil War, where it's like I'm trying to help something about his friend. He was like, so was I.
But so even, by the way, narratively speaking, it doesn't tell you the time that it takes from Ellie to travel to Seattle. But the idea that Isaac would be like, hey, let's send 7 of my best, who
I thought that was extremely weird at the start of the game.
Nora, by the way, is one of the best surgeons in Seattle. So is what is her name with Mel, one of the best surgeons in Seattle. So you're going to send 2 of your best people that have the capability of helping you reproduce life with being any kind of birth, saving lives. You're going to send them out. So first of all, because when you meet Isaac, he's a legit hard ass. You have 3 days to invade this thing, but he won't let you go to the aquarium to go see if Owen's there because you know where he's at.
He was played by Jeffrey Wright, by the way. Love Jeffrey Wright.
But it's another narrative plot where I was like, it makes no sense. Like, he would have never sent that group in the first place. If that group was sent, it would have been on their own decisions. And then again, Isaac probably wouldn't have welcomed him back with open arms. But again,
you talking about you saying that he sent her to kill Joel?
Yeah, he wouldn't have allowed it. His character, who is portrayed in such short time, he would not have allowed that, is what I'm saying. She's
I don't think he would have either.
Of scars. Like, multiple people a part of that group are, like you said, or like I just said, massive, benefits to society that they're trying to build. it makes zero sense that he would send them in the first place. And then it makes zero sense. That's the only thing I'm kind of getting at is like the whole idea of them coming. Because like, why jeopardize 7 of these people who make this community what it is, as you can see. So that was another part I kind of had a problem with. I would understand if Isaac was more welcoming and more understanding, and he it did show that to a little bit. And maybe that was a problem with maybe not showing enough of his character, because he did say if Owen comes back, he's like, I'll allow him to come back and let him speak his mind, and we'll make a judgment from there. So it did show that, I guess,
from my understanding, maybe I missed something, but maybe I did miss something. I don't know. But when that scene where she's like, and they let you go do that to go kill Joel or whatever. And from my understanding, I thought she was lying. Like I thought she was lying to him and saying that, yeah, he allowed it, but in actuality, it was like we were supposed to patrol this area, and that's what we did.
But how do they not reconcile it with them, though? It never explains that.
They're probably like, hey, there's this base over here. We're going to go check it out.
Right. But they were going for months, because going from Seattle to Wyoming on foot, it's not going to take a day trip.
No.
Yeah. So it would have been cool. And honestly, I know this is kind of messed up, but even if Isaac said something like, when she said, hey, I want to go look for him, I know where he's at, it's less than a day trip. If he'd been like, oh, like the time that you told me blah, 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 you were going for a month. Now that, like I said, that would have tied that whole little plot and a little kind of concern I have with the story right there would have been buttoned down just from having an extra line in there. And I know it's kind of messed up, because I want to say this real quick. I am picking at this game. Like I said, the game is great to multiple capacities, and we were critiquing it to a point that, and it's, I don't know how to explain it. It's not even the care for the character, but like, and this is the next conversation we kind of need to have to some extent, is I just don't think it's a 10 out of 10 is all I'm trying to say. And everybody is making this game blow. And personally, plot-wise, everybody says it's phenomenal. It wraps everything up. But it literally, it left me with like, no, it didn't.
Yeah.
Like literally, Ellie has to turn behind every shoulder. Every 10 feet she walks, she needs to look behind each shoulder. How does that wrap a plot up? It doesn't.
Yeah, let me ask you this though. So you finished Last of Us 1, right?
Right.
Did that wrap everything up for you? It didn't. Me. When I first played that game, I was like,
well, hold on. It ended with a Christopher Nolan kind of ending, like an Inception. When he spins that little topper, does it top over or does it not? It's for the actual viewer to make that decision of himself, because he's filling in the blanks at that point. This game does not do that at all.
See, I left Last of Us 1 not liking the ending, and I left this game not liking the ending. But I don't think it makes it a bad game for not liking the ending when I enjoy 90%
I told you.
of it.
I told you, like, that's what I was getting at earlier when I was told about the gameplay. And that's what I'm talking about. The story is the biggest part that sticks with you, for sure. But like I said, gameplay-wise, I guess I just told you, if you want to play this game, just make 3 sticky bombs or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Shoot 1 bullet. You don't even have to shoot at an enemy and stick them down, and you're going to clear out 80% of that area. And that's where I was talking about gameplay-wise.
Yeah.
So, like, now maybe, like, when you play on a hard difficulty, like, the AI has a different kind of reaction to some of that stuff. But regardless of that, but the story in itself, though, like, even with what you said, I still can't. It just still makes zero sense to me, because you just opened up. The basis of the story is a cycle of violence. And you literally just threaded. If you had a scarf, you just undid the scarf, and now you have 10,000 threads based off the thematic story that you're trying to tell in The Last of Us 2. And the reason why I'm saying this is because The Last of Us 1, you had no idea who the doctor is. You had no idea who Abby was, but they wrote it in The Last of Us 2. So coming up with that in your mind, now you literally have tens of thousands of people, not tens of thousands, excuse me, thousands of people that you killed through Ellie and or Abby, and it's the same concept. You have all these threads, so nothing was resolved. It's just another cycle of violence that's going to repeat itself. And even though she closed hers up with Abby, it doesn't mean she closed hers up with Manny's multiple girlfriends, which, of course, you've seen. You know, he was a player, had multiple girlfriends. Same thing with Nora. Doesn't close up with Nora. What if she had a boyfriend? What if Owen had multiple girlfriends
But
or family there. You see what I'm saying?
You're proving the plot, though, that it's not good to get revenge and stuff.
But if that's your theme, like I said, though, it doesn't. The idea of resolving Abby's and Ellie's own personal between them two, like I said, that doesn't make any sense because now you've just opened up 1,000 others.
Yeah, but that's realistic in my opinion, because I mean, I'm sure I piss off people daily, and I don't know it, but you know, one of them might come over one day and punch me in the face, or I might have been an asshole to someone once in my life, and you know, I might be minding my own business, and they might go up to me and say, "Hey, man, you're an asshole," and I'll be like, "What did I do?" Tell me why I'm an asshole. I mean, that's realistic to me, and in the apocalypse, I hate to say it, you're gonna make some enemies.
Right, but what I'm saying is, when Abby puts her guitar down and she says, "I can't play now because I lost my 2 fingers," in her mind, Ellie, who do I say?
Abby.
Abby. Sorry.
Abby,
so in her mind, at that moment in time, what can she reflect on and be like, I had some kind of conclusive moment to the things that I've done? There's absolutely none, other than the fact that
her conclusive moment is, shit. If I am consumed by this violence, if I am consumed by wanting revenge, if I'm consumed by only thinking about Joel and how I failed him, then I'm just going to ruin everyone else's life. Just like I ran off. Tommy's freaking paralyzed. I think Tommy's the most heartbreaking character. Tommy's freaking paralyzed and lost his dang wife. I'm going to end up like Tommy. That's what I'm thinking.
No. The problem is, it's too late.
Yeah, it is too late. But it's not too late for her.
The minute she puts her guitar down, it doesn't matter that there's a wolf sniper or a scar sniper or, at this point, a rattler sniper waiting in the woods for her. She can't quit being exactly what she is because she started it because of everything that she's done to try to make the resolution with the fact that she's trying to revenge Joel. And that's the problem I'm telling you about. She cannot let her guard down based off of the parameter of the story that was told in The Last of Us 2.
Of course not.
And the way that everyone seeks revenge. There is absolutely zero way, because she technically has the wolf scars, not the scars, but to some extent, and the rattlers after her namesake. So there's absolutely zero way that cycle of violence ended. Zero way.
I don't think the game was proving that the cycle of violence ended. I think it was proving that the cycle of violence between those two characters.
No. That's where you're wrong. That's to the characters, yes, but again, it makes no sense because you have the Joel guitar playing on the porch, which is where she has that moment back where she can kind of come to a conclusion with, like, maybe I don't need to do this. And you had Abby's dream where she saw her dad standing up in the surgery room with welcoming arms.
Okay.
But again, the idea of the whole game of the cycle of violence, it never ended. All you did was strand it 1,000 ways in this video game.
I think it ended between Abby and I think it ended between Ellie.
But if Ellie would have said, all I'm saying is Ellie would have went and said, you know what, I'm going to be a martyr for this dystopian world.
Yeah.
Take my brain, reverse engineer it, and cure this piece of shit so people don't have to act like this towards one another. Yeah. Then you literally can start a new society in the world, and you're bringing a conclusion. So really all you're saying at the end of this game, just truthfully, even with ending the cycles, is that both Ellie and Abby are extremely selfish. That's all you're saying.
Yeah. I think that's good. Yeah.
I mean, if that's the point of the goal, but to me it's just like, what's the point of making that? Then you're just getting into like The Walking Dead, which ran way too long and made absolutely zero sense.
I agree.
At the end of the day. So to me, at that point,
I didn't like the ending because I didn't feel like it wrapped enough up for the characters. But at the end of the day, the story was to stop. You just have to stop at some point and be like, I am effing everyone up because all I want to do is to hurt and kill other people that could be important.
And I agree with that. And coming to the actual disposition or the mindset that Abby and or Ellie has to make, that's honorable. But what I'm trying to say, and this is where everything claps on itself before, is you can't do that. Everything that you played through the game, you can't do that. you're going to have so many names. Like, if it was an old Western film, by the way, just saying.
I get what you're saying.
Your wanted monetary amount would be so high that no
Yeah.
one would stop until they killed you. And that's exactly how they set the characters up, both of them, technically.
Yeah.
So the way I look at it, I'm like, you can't. It's almost like the song by
That's what happened to Joel, though. That's exactly what happened to Joel.
There ain't no rest for the... No, Joel got away from it.
He
Joel
did.
made the
but
mindset.
then what happened,
Jackson.
Keaton? It caught up with him.
Yeah, and more or less what's going to happen with the remaining characters left.
Exactly.
It's the same thing. There's absolutely no conclusion to the story, is what I'm trying to say.
That's the apocalypse,
The whole narrative plot of The Last of Us 2 was supposed to conclude. There's no conclusion.
You're living in a world where everything wants to kill you, though, in the apocalypse.
Right, and maybe that's my fault, was saying, hey, if she went and sacrificed herself and became a martyr for it, and actually was a reverse engineered cure for it, and she could have actually stopped
that
all
wasn't
this.
her decision.
Right, that was The Last of Us 1.
Yep.
The narrative plots that were being played out was setting that up for an ending, and you could have chose that ending, but you didn't.
Yeah.
And if you chose that ending, if at the last moment, all of a sudden Abby comes out from the water and she's like, hey, I just want to let you know the fireflies are real and there may be a shot. And all of a sudden, Ellie's like, holy crap, there's a shot. I'm going to take it. And then they go there and they find that cure and they reverse engineer it. 30 years from now, everything's gone. They clear everything out. They're rebuilding society. That literally is the end of that cycle of violence. You ended all of that cycle of violence. But with
I agree, and I think that would make a great third game.
Well, the third game, I'm assuming, if it is going to be a third game, is Ellie not choosing it by choice. It's going to be by force.
That's what I think. I think the third game is going to be she meets up with the Fireflies. She tells them about Ellie and how she still exists and is still alive. And it's going to be Abby trying to find Ellie and trying to bring her out and steal her away from Dina and JJ, who I assume will be older, and trying to steal her away and show her that, like, hey, we need to help everyone else. And maybe Ellie coming to terms and try not to be selfish, because this whole game is Ellie is selfish.
Well, I kind of agree with you to some extent, but I actually think it would
in
be
my
better,
opinion, I think this
would
game
be better
is the dead man's chest of a trilogy.
If Abby would actually turn around and actually save Ellie from the pending doom, let's say, I think that's different. If Abby shows up and says, look, humanity is shit. It was shit before this happened. It's shit now. There's no reason you need to do this. They're coming after you. We need to get you to a safe place, you and your family. That would be a Last of Us 3 that's compelling, because then they did wrap themselves up and hopefully they get away and they can settle themselves off. But if the whole idea is a Firefly getting her and more or less reverse engineering at that point, then you should have done that in The Last of Us 2 without ever having to kill thousands of people and create all these other threads of violence. So, like, I mean, at the end of the day, that's probably my biggest problem in the game is multiple times he said it's about the cycle of violence, which for sure it is definitely about the cycle of violence.
Yeah.
But the idea that they can wrap up with two characters, but yet you have 1,000 other strands out there, that's what I can't settle. That's what I can't settle with. And it makes no sense to me. It makes no sense that you're resetting a cycle with different characters. That's exactly what's happening.
Yep.
But when you're doing that, I just don't think you can conclude on those characters unless those characters are dead and or have somehow separated themselves completely from it. So that's my biggest problem with the game, because it's just like, hypothetically, you could have Last of Us 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, all the way to fucking 99.
You could.
About every single character that Ellie killed and or Abby killed, seeking revenge. So to me, it's just like, literally, you're in a perpetual cycle of violence and hate. How did you solve anything? Period. Literally, the beginning of the game was the only resolution. Then you created a conflict, and then you never resolved the conflict. Your story,
They did resolve the conflict, though, between the two characters. Not
how did it resolve the conflict? Just because they were tired? You see what I'm saying? Like, you literally killed six of your best friends.
No, because Abby did not want to kill her. She didn't want to kill her. She didn't want to kill any of her friends. She was done with it. She was like, I don't care anymore. I don't want to kill you, and I don't want to do that. I know what I did to you was wrong. I'm done with you. I've got what I wanted. I'm done. And then Ellie's like, well, I want to get what I wanted, but it's killing everyone around me. I'm done.
Yeah, okay, I get it, and I understand that. I do understand.
Yeah, at the end of the game, she's going to Jackson probably to win back Dina or try to.
Yeah, there's a multiple, game called Death Stranding, for instance, and it kind of talks about all these strands. And I'm going to kind of allude to this real quick. I understand that, but you have 2 strands out of 1,000. So to me, it's poor storytelling, to be honest with you, because all you did was you just opened up. You concluded, to some extent, 2 people who had beef with one another. But in these 2 people that had beef, you literally went to a cow factory and murdered 100,000 cows to create so much more beef with all these other characters.
Yeah.
And these characters don't exist. Of course, Last of Us, Neil Druckmann, whoever can write it in. But to me, that's my problem with the game. Like, unless you set up a third and somehow you can conclude it all together, it just, everything collapses on itself, because the minute Manny got shot, by the way, by Bill, there you go. You just created a whole new cycle of violence with Bill and Manny that has nothing to do.
Not by Bill, it was by Tommy.
Tommy, sorry. Who the heck
Bill
is
was,
Bill? He's Last of Us
Bill
1.
was the, he was the obese gay guy in the first one.
So you just created this whole cycle of violence between Tommy and Manny's people. Literally, just from that. So if that's a story you're telling, you literally leave it so open-ended and so open to interpretation. It's just almost like, okay, now, don't get me wrong. If you're talking about the dystopian world, yeah, you're right. But you're actually talking about a piece of media, because we're talking about a piece of media with concise, conclusive storytelling. That's where I have the fault with it. And that's where I don't understand how people are giving it 10s or kind of like talking about the story and stuff. Because to me, it's just like, it literally collapses on itself. The minute you dissect the story and you truly look at it, unless I'm completely missing something, literally you've created tens of thousands of cycles of violences, but you concluded 2. What did you get? Nowhere. You can't get positive by making a negative, as people would try to say. So to me, it's just like, when I beat the game, I was like, holy shit. This is the first moment. I was like, Joel and Ellie, I'm glad they can get to the reconciliation. That was a great moment. My second whole mindset was like, wow, everything that happened in that whole playthrough was massively needless. Every single thing that happened was completely needless.
You're right, but you can say that about the first game.
No, the first game's different.
Because the whole game is you delivering the package, which is Ellie, and her goal is to save the world. You deliver her, and then you kill everyone, and then you drive away.
The first game sets up with Sarah's murder, by the way, so he had a daughter. Okay. And it also goes through a whole year. You go through spring, fall, summer, and winter.
You're right.
Through that time, you actually have a period of time that makes sense for one character to be able to find love with another character. Completely. I can actually understand what Joel did in the first game. I understand, even if it's wrong, I understand what he did. At the end of this game,
what Ellie did.
Ellie, Abby, I don't know. Both of them, not really, to be honest with you. Both of them. And then thematically speaking, even on the first game, when he hits the very end, she says, and he pretty much tells her there was, no shot. Like, it was open-ended, first of all. And that's what I loved about this game. This game tries to be open-ended, and the only reason why it's open-ended is because your open-endedness of this game is based off the exact thing that you try to solve in the game, which to me is like, you didn't tell a story. Your open-endedness is based off this amount of violence that still exists in this world that's going to always exist until the actual problem, the root of the problem, which is the destruction of modern society. And yet the cure for the destruction of modern society is sitting right there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, I just don't know. Unless there's a third one that comes out, and maybe that's their whole plan, and it'll wrap all this up. And like you said, that's the whole idea when you mentioned that earlier. And I hope maybe that is the case. But, like, I don't know, man. It was like, when you complete something, and don't get me wrong, the journey to completion, like I said, that's where it gets a 7 out of 10, because, like, the graphics, the acting. By the way, regardless of the story, the acting, shout out to them, dude. They were phenomenal. Every single one of them were great. And this is the whole idea to me where it's like, you can push this forward. But I'm going to give you an example, Neil. If you ever hear this, because I know it's just me and Tanner, we're a small party. Game of Thrones was picked clean by the bone because of some narrative structure decisions that were made towards the end. If you did this in that setting, there is absolutely no way this wouldn't have blown up any worse than it has now. Now, within the gaming industry, there's a lot of people that are unhappy with it. But I'm just letting you know, if you had hundreds of millions of audiences or even tens of millions that are just tuning in, there's just no way. They would have picked you clean and they'd been like, dude, you did not write a concise story. Like, there's nothing to the story that makes any sense. And I'm comparing the mediums because they got a 10 out of 10. And this is what I kind of want to wrap it back to. So movies, when it gets 100%, by the way, on Rotten Tomato or whatever it is, IMDb, it's literally a must-watch, if that makes any sense. It's a must-watch movie. A game gets out of 10 out of 10. Now, the majority of all games that get 10 out of 10, it's normally deemed revolutionary and it shouldn't be missed because it is taking something within this industry and it's pushing it a little bit further.
Yeah.
God of War did that. Breath of the Wild did that. Even the indie games that got 10 out of 10, to their extent, they did that. But this game was just a straight-up deviation from The Last of Us 1 with a story. Now, this is my opinion, like you said, that I feel like you can poke holes into it. You can extrapolate it however you want to 1,000 different degrees because to me, it's just like it just collapses on itself. That's where I'm saying it doesn't get a 10 out of 10 because it's just like you're a deviation from the first game. And there's other games out there that you can play that has way better third-person shooter mechanics. And this is what I'm talking about Gears of War 5, by the way, Gears 5. And I kind of mentioned this in the text. Gears 5 gives you a very good story, a concise story. It sets up the next story. It has major moments that play with characterizations that you're like, holy crap, how is he going to deal with that? Again, at a personal level, as well as a fictional level of saving the world, as well as a fictional level of how the world got there, by the way. And yet it gets like an 8.3, but it's like the best action third-person game you can possibly play. So I'm sitting there in my head, I'm like, wait a minute. This game gets an A. And I literally thought this today. And I'm like, I'll be honest with you, Gears 5 is about the same length of Last of Us 2. And in my head, I'm sitting there like, how does Gears 5 get this rating and Last of Us 2 get this rating? In my head. It literally makes no mind because the actual gameplay and execution of Gears 5 is better than Last of Us 2. And I don't care. Anybody can attack me, whatever you want to, survival. Yeah. Gears 5 shooting, multi-moment action is crisper. Again, it's soldiers, I understand that. But moment to moment's better. It tells a concise story. It builds up on a story. It has a climax. It has a huge old crap moment. And yet it gets this certain rating. By the way, visually, fidelity-wise, phenomenal game. One of the best running Xbox games. Maybe it doesn't look good as Last of Us 2, but then The Last of Us 2 gets these 10s. So and this is what I was talking about. I even think Sony, and this is what I texted you about, Sony gets this boost because I don't understand how this got 10 out of 10 through multiple outlets. Now, don't get me wrong. GameSpot, they gave it 8 out of 10, by the way.
Yeah.
And she kind of alluded to some of this stuff in the story of the YouTube videos that you sent me, and even more that I looked up, and even like an article from Vice, they alluded to a lot of these things that poking holes in the actual plot and the actual story. So I just don't understand how the whole industry doesn't see this, or is it just a matter of we're viewing the rating of games in a different mindset? Like, if we're talking about just games of straight up gameplay, The Last of Us, like I said, it's no better than Metal Gear Solid 5. It's no better than Ghost Recon Breakpoint. It's no better than Ghost Recon, the one before Breakpoint.
But those are all really good games, in my opinion. You're naming really good games, so I'm like...
Yes, Metal Gear Solid 5, yes. But Breakpoint, and that actually, I guess I kind of caught myself on this, because didn't they give Metal Gear Solid 5 a 10 out of 10?
I think so, or it was at least close.
But they gave it a 10 out of 10 based off the gameplay, whereas they gave this one a 10 out of 10 more or less based off the story and the journey. Yeah. So, I just think the medium, and kudos to games because I love video games, it's just really hard at the end of the day
to rate a game.
Truly rate a game because, don't get me wrong, the performances in Last of Us 2, there's no game that does it better other than maybe Red Dead 2 and maybe God of War.
I agree with that.
Those are the only two that are pretty close with, having performances that are comparable or comparable to Last of Us 2 performances. So I definitely get that. And like I said, gameplay-wise, even though I'm saying there's it still plays phenomenal. The game is fun to play.
Mm-hmm.
But I just have nitpicks with the story because I just think it collapses on itself. Is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And what I mean by collapses on itself is like there's no way you can sew up two ends when you're trying to knit a hat that it needs 1,000, knits to be sewed up. For instance, it just makes no sense to me. And it's very Game of Thrones, which I love Game of Thrones, kind of the same concept, like how it ended rushly. There's tons of, things that ended in that game. You're like, that makes absolutely zero sense with what you built, by the way, priorhand and beforehand.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm listening to a bunch of like Spoilercast with Neil and Troy and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And like I said, it makes it really hard to listen to because they dive into the characters.
Yeah.
And I do understand the characters' motivations. With what is played within the game, 100% understand the character's motivations.
Right.
I can get like Ellie's at least. Like I said, Abby's is a little harder to understand, and this is what I was talking about because Abby's is my father was killed, and you said 7 years. I think it was 5. I can't remember. Some length of time went by, and then you finally get a lead and you go on it. But yet you built this whole community, you built this whole aspect of love around these other peoples, but you're going to completely abandon that at this point in time. That's the part, and when I say abandon that community, go do X, and then you come back, and then the minute you've been fighting scars for 5 years, turn around and do Y and save them. See what I'm talking about? Within a 3-day period. So it literally was a moment of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, hey, change of heart, Kubo. I can't remember. I haven't watched Yu-Gi-Oh! Since 5th grade, but I know that was a card, change of heart card. That's what I mean by that. Like, that part of the story is just like, wait a minute, like your character's vendetta. Your whole existence was killing Joel, but you killed Scars for years. Who killed all your friends, but
and Joel saved her. Joel saved her life too at the first of the game.
Joel,
you're right.
Exactly. Joel saved her life. I didn't even want to bring that up. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, Joel saved her life, and then the Scars saved her life. But like she should have hated both equally.
Exactly.
I get what you're saying there.
And that's what I mean. Like that's some of her, I guess you can say, problems. But regardless, at the end of the day, like I'm gonna play a new game plus, and I might get a different experience out of it. To be honest with you, I might,
might be Man of Steel for me. Like I hated Man of Steel when I first played Man of Steel, and then like I watched it again, and I was like, damn, I love Man of Steel.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a good movie.
No. I don't. Like I said, that's why I gave it a 7/10 because.
Do you want me to explain why I like the game now?
I really enjoyed the game. Some of the story itself and the reason why I gave it a 7/10 is because of the other outside noise where I keep reading all these other reviews and stuff. And I'm like, and things that they make point, like in the story, I'm like, how did you not see this? How do you not come to this conclusion? Like they're not even thinking about it. And now this is kind of a different kind of idea. And maybe it's just their mindset is like, I'm actually taking the actions that are made and I'm actually applying it to the world in general. They only apply the actions, like you kind of alluded to the characters, which I think you can't do because you build a world. Yeah. Literally, within the same reviews, they're like, oh, Seattle being flooded, the world is great. But then when it comes down to the actual actions of the characters, it defines it to the actual character. And I'm like, whoa. That makes absolute zero sense in your review. You're sitting there and you're saying geographically, whatever graphically, with whatever's happened to the Earth in 2039, but then you define the actions only to the person, but the person itself who more or less lit a fuse and it's leading to dynamite with 100 other threads, you don't think about that. And the only reason why I say that is because I think it ties back to the 2 threads that more or less are concluded in this game, as you would say. And that's where that's the biggest beef I have with it, because the story being told doesn't do it justice with the world that you built, is all I'm saying. Because the minute, like I said, if she lays that guitar down and she walks out that door, she literally, if it's truly Ellie, she doesn't go back to Jackson. If you're in that actual character's mindset with everything that's happened with the actual interactions you would have had with Abby, you should be like, I can't go back. I cannot jeopardize, Potato's life, JJ's life. I can't, was it Nina? I can't jeopardize their life. I can't jeopardize Jackson. Like, if you really think that she concluded that story, and I'm not talking about with the idea of Abby coming back for her, I'm talking about the idea of whatever branch of whatever happened with the hundreds of others that she killed, she should be like, I'm done. I'm going to dang Canada. I'm going to Anchorage, Alaska. There's no way that I can do this because I'm going to jeopardize their lives.
So you're wanting a Dexter approach.
I haven't seen Dexter, but if that's what it is, then yes. Because
okay, yeah, that's what happens in the very last episode of Dexter's Bull for that series. But the very end of Dexter, he's like, okay, well, I'm hurting everyone I'm around, so I'm gonna go off to Kansas and be a lumberjack and not be around anyone.
Right. Well, then, yeah, that's the only way it concludes in the story. Because, like I said, if she goes back and the Rattlers, who you just killed Karen, for instance, and she comes and her husband's like super pissed, and she comes to Jackson, it's like, oh shit, goes back to Santa Barbara, gets all the Rattlers back, and they invade Jackson, and Tommy's dead, Maria's dead, freaking Jesse's family's dead. They find Nina and they hang her by the throat, and then they find JJ and they stab him and stick him in a dang alligator pit, and he gets eaten by alligators. And then all of a sudden, Ellie's like, oh no, I'm going to go back and kill the whole Rattler crew because they killed Jackson. See what I'm saying? That's when the story falls apart. So the only way is if she completely leaves and it's like, I'm done. Like, there's no way that I can completely go to this world anymore. I don't exist anymore. It doesn't happen. But here's the irony of it. If in the theater, when she drops a knife from Ellie's throat, it could have ended that way to some extent with at least her, but you're still going to have it because they're still in their farmstead and they're still isolated from Jackson. You know what I'm saying? So you're only jeopardizing Potato and Nina at that point, and you're not jeopardizing the whole city of Jackson. But regardless, that's what I meant. You're just it's to me, like, the way I look at it, the way they wrote the story, it's just a massive set of dominoes. And if one falls one to the right or one to the left, it's just going to offset this huge other play, and it can cause all these other issues within the world that you're building.
I understand that complaint to a point. For me, I really enjoyed playing this game. The reason I give it a 9 out of 10 is because there wasn't a moment where I didn't want to get back to playing this game. There wasn't a time where I was like, I'm not looking forward to continuing the story. There wasn't a point where there was multiple points where I cried, whether it be the flashbacks with Joel,
the dinosaurs,
Joel and Ellie, the dinosaurs, the astronaut helmet, just walking through Joel's house and looking at pictures and seeing that he was a woodworker and seeing different things and seeing about how much he cared about Ellie and how much she cared about him. And then Ellie and Dina's relationship, stuff like that. That's what made me really like the game, because it gave me something in every single scene. There was never a point where I got bored. There was never a gameplay sequence that I thought was repetitive, besides, searching the house for supplies and stuff like that. But it's an apocalypse game. You're going to have to do it anyway.
Oh, whoa. I hate to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But do you notice how, by the way, the outbreak happens in 2013?
Yes.
The actual setting, I believe, for Last of Us 2 is 2039. And she opens up a bag of chips to heal her health. Dude, how stale are those chips? I'm just be honest with you. They're 38 years out of date.
I know. It's like Nature's Valley granola bars are just laying around.
Regardless, continue. Sorry, I just thought that was
no. I agree. But then you get stuff like the record store that's like completely stocked, and everything's completely stocked in certain stores. She finds random trading cards that somehow survived 30 years of not being burned and are just laying around.
By the way, I love those trade cards. They're way cooler than the Firefly.
They are pretty cool.
Whatever you call it. Yeah, pendants.
Yeah, I thought those were really cool. I loved, like you said, the action was great. I loved the combat. I hated, in Uncharted 4, which is probably my second least favorite Uncharted, sadly. I didn't like Uncharted 4 as much as I loved Uncharted 3 or Uncharted 2. But that's my favorite franchise too, and I didn't care for that. Boy, what you doing?
Now, you made a good point real quick, because I'm going to get off here in a minute to eat anyways. I know you're wrapping up, and we need to wrap up anyways. But, like, Uncharted 4, and this is, like I said, talking about reviewing, I guess, games and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
like Uncharted 4, we were able to suspend the belief or the disbelief of that series for whatever
Yes, I
reason.
agree.
Like, oh wow, Nathan just murdered 100 people.
Yep.
Part of this,
No one cared. But there wasn't
military
a plot point of one guy getting his friend murdered by Nathan Drake. I understand you're upset with that
That's what I'm
that was
saying.
never a plot point. You shouldn't make that a plot point in a game where you're just killing everyone.
Right.
Or you
But
can
then
legit
on this
do that with
game,
every single game. I get that complaint.
that is your plot point, and if you're going to sit there and make that your whole point of emphasis of the whole story,
Yeah.
like I said, it falls apart on itself unless they concluded it differently. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is like,
I can agree with that.
If you concluded it differently, you could have wrapped everything up, but they did.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I meant by that, and I'm glad you brought up Uncharted 4 because Nathan Drake is probably one of the biggest serial killers.
Yeah, he is. He legit is. And the shooting controls in Uncharted 4, I did not like. They borrowed it from The Last of Us, I feel like, to where it's like way too floaty. You're moving up and down. And in Uncharted 4, I wanted it to be more precise because it makes more sense in a Last of Us setting because you're freaking terrified because there's a freaking zombie running at you or there's someone with a freaking axe charging you. But in Uncharted, I'm more like James Bond and I want more precision when I'm shooting. I don't want floaty up and down, barely able to shoot Nathan Drake. So so like the shooting, I like the shooting in this game because it made sense. But
I think in this game, and actually it's Ellie State. The idea that they added $1 to her, she's experienced beyond her years, and that's why she's able to do what she does. Yep. So like the floating doesn't make sense.
I loved playing as Abby though. I felt like a badass playing as Abby.
Yeah. And by the way, I just want to say this because my wife watched it a little bit, and she'd probably give me some shit for this, but like, at first I was kind of like, what the hell is wrong with Abby's arms? I do admit.
I will send you the girl who plays her, the girl who like does the mocap for her. I will send you her Instagram after the podcast. She is jacked all to hell.
Yeah, and that's fine because to me, the game itself, and this is talking about the world building that I was kind of alluding to with the plot holes earlier, makes sense for someone to actually want to be that way. And go and put
to be a tank.
Yeah, that makes sense because you're
the
in a
Rock exists, people.
Yeah, you're in a life or death situation constantly. So yes, you should create as much strength as possible because you don't know when shit's going to hit the fan.
Exactly, but you're not going to be able to find the nearest crowbar.
So like,
and you can legit break people's neck with your arms.
Yeah, and I mean, like some people were kind of like I read. Just on some forums and stuff they were like taken aback by like Abby's appearance from that stuff. Yeah. And like that one, like that's one of the few things at first I'm like, dang, yeah, maybe they're right. But then it kind of set with me like, no, they're not. Like, yeah, she needs to be able to lift this garage door manually without having to worry about having help because you're in a dire situation.
Exactly.
Like, that actually made sense to me.
You better be able to run quick because once a clicker comes at you, you got to get out of there.
And with that being said, I loved in the last fight, and this is the other things, and it's so hard to talk about this game because really the story and the holes that I see. Yeah. When she fights her for the final time and her muscle mass is mostly gone, I was blown away. I was like, they paid enough attention to detail that she's malnutrition at this point. Yep. She couldn't do any kind of weightlifting, and that she has lost her mass, like her muscle mass. Yep. I was like, they are like to me that was mind blowing to some extent because like they could have kept her character model, and she still does. You can tell like her arms are still a little more cut, but they're not like guns.
No,
like,
you can tell.
Guns throughout the game.
Yeah, you can definitely tell the difference.
And to them, like kudos to Naughty Dog, kudos to the time passed because that was really cool. Really environmental character storytelling without actually purveying anything. And by the way, man. Abby is a badass.
Yes.
Up to die, and she still has that kind of energy to pretty much almost be Ellie. Like,
yeah, I think that's kind of like the primal of like I'm going to save basically my kid now. Just like Joel had that kind of primal rage.
So like that part was pretty crazy, but yeah, I mean you can finish your thought, but I'm following you right now. I agree with what you're saying for sure.
Yeah. So that's really it for me. I mean, I don't have many games that like capture me to that point to where I can say I was entertained through the entire thing. Yes, I agree. Like, I don't like the ending. I don't think the ending wraps up as much as it should or hits home at what they wanted it to hit home for, and that's why it's leading to problems with like you even made references to things that could have been better in the story, and I agree completely with you, even if it was just throwaway lines that could have been do that. And it's nitpicky, but it's stuff that could have been there to make the ending feel more like an ending rather than something that can be continued on.
True.
But I feel like they did that. I say that, but then I look back at the first game. I'm like, okay, well, at the end, you're the bad guy, and you realize you're the bad guy, and it's meant to create that conversation with other people. Like, what the fuck did I just play? Am I the bad guy?
But I'm gonna tell you this about the God of War. This conversation wasn't made for God of War.
No.
When God of War finished, people are like, dude, where's this going next? Was the snake Kratos?
The scene,
was the
snake?
world snake?
Yeah.
Kratos, like, is, Loki, Atreus, going to portray, like, what are we setting up? Like, it left you with so much more, like, the seeds were planted and the ideas were planted, but yet it wrapped up the idea of what God of War 1 was. This game is just like, for instance, you're talking about The Last of Us 3, and I made this joke earlier. The Last of Us 3 could literally be Abby making the Fireflies, and the Fireflies being like, oh, wait a minute, the cure's out there. We're getting the cure. We're going to reverse engineer the cure. We're done.
I do think Abby will be the main character of the next game.
The Last of Us 3 could also be Nora's boyfriend, who was with the wolves, gets done with, let's say, killing majority of the scars, and he's fed up with the fact that Nora's not there anymore, and she's like, who killed Nora? And it's Ellie. So then he's gonna go after Ellie. But wait a minute.
Do you think the game would have been better received? I know this sounds bad, but do you think the game would have been better received if they hadn't marketed the game as an Ellie and Joel game? If they marketed the game as Abby, but they said Joel and Ellie might make appearances, and they marketed the whole game as Abby's story.
No,
do you think there would have been different?
No. I do not. I think the actual game itself is played. I played perfectly to that point. Like, I actually love the idea of playing the parallel story time with Abby. I think that's really cool because there's so many threads when you're playing through like Ellie's, and then you're playing through Abby's that you hear, like, through comms or whatever it is. You hear, like, what's happening within that city.
Yeah.
When
really cool. Tommy's running through with the sniper rifle.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that scene. I love Tommy too.
If you're actually following along with Ellie at that point decides to go to the aquarium, which she ends up killing Owen and Mel. Whereas
the baby
was at the marina, where that's where Manny and Abby end up going, more or less.
Yeah.
So, like, that part I think is really cool. It's narratively structured really well. I just think they botched the landing. That's all I'm saying.
I agree too.
Is where, like, at the very end.
But I don't think that warrants a decrease of 3 points on the scale.
See, the reason why I say that is because you don't justify any of what happened prior. Because all you did is reset this violence to happen amongst all. Because at this point, all you're talking about is literally the writers wrote themselves in a corner, and they wrote themselves out of the corner for Last of Us 2. And now you've opened up 1,000 threads to write yourself out of the next corner if you want to continue the story. And that's how writing is. And that's why I think it takes a huge hit. Because, like, at that point in time, literally, Abby's storyline is literally, at this point, how many people have Joel and Ellie killed through The Last of Us 1 and 2? 500? 1,000? You literally opening up more than that, so many ideas. Just because her dad was the doctor makes no difference. The same story can be applied to any character who seeks revenge against Ellie and or Joel. Literally amongst the whole Last of Us 1 and 2. And that's my problem with the game.
And Ellie even said that, though. She was like, Joel made many enemies.
And that's my main problem with the game. And now Joel made those enemies, and now guess what? Ellie made those enemies. So you don't resolve it just because you think you can pick daisies with Abby in the field now. It's not resolved. And that's my biggest problem with the game, because they try to conclude it, but it's like, dude, you didn't conclude anything. All you did was tell a story that applies to every single other person in the story that you murdered and or killed, getting to the conclusion of the story. So all you did was open up 1,000 different threads to close one thread. It makes absolutely zero sense. And then, like I said, Murphy's Law, literally during this whole time, you got everybody killed that you cared about on both sides of the story, except for Tommy, who I thought Tommy was dead, by the way. Crazy.
I like that he wasn't.
Right. But that's all I'm saying. Like, you literally didn't conclude anything. All you did was leave it completely open-ended.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there could have been some better resolutions to the characters.
Hopefully, we'll see. Maybe
it could have been like Ellie like walking up to the gate of Jackson and then like the gate opening, and then you get to kind of decide whether she goes in or not or something. I don't know.
And I did read some articles that said maybe that they should allow choice in the Naughty Dog games going forward. So like that you could make those choices, but then
I
don't completely butcher stories though.
In some ways I like that, in some ways I don't, because I mean at the end of the day you can have everybody, you don't know where to go with the characters after their choice happens. It's like Red Dead. I mean, in Red Dead you can either you can change it in a little ways, like if you have a good John Marston or a bad John Marston, but it's still going to lead to you getting killed. Like you can't change big narrative choices like, oh, am I going to kill this Abby, a main character, or am I going to let her live? That'd be like, oh, am I gonna kill John Marston or let him live?
True. And comparing these things though, like I don't think I would give Red Dead 2 a 10 out of 10 either, because like there's some things in that game. Talking about plot, literally Dutch is constantly like, I got this big idea. Yeah,
it's the same thing.
Every time something goes wrong.
Love Dutch.
The only reason why I say like Red Dead 2, and I'm not saying plot wise, but like Arthur Morgan's character is fleshed out to the point where you understand what he does and you understand why he lets John Marston do what he does. Is all I'm saying. In this game, the character's choices that are made literally can be extrapolated, I can't even say it right now, amongst every AI and AI that has not been written to the game. That's my biggest problem in the game.
Okay. Yeah.
John, like Arthur Morgan's is personal. He understands it as part of the game. He understands where John Marston's at. He understands where he's going for it. Arthur Morgan understands the decisions that he's makes. Hopefully is going to more or less create a flower that's going to bud into what he thought Red Dead 1 would be, which it was until, of course, John Marston was pulled back in because Dutch started doing his crazy crap again.
Yeah.
Whereas in this game, it's just like, wait a minute. All you did was try to resolve a resolution between two people. But during that resolution, the whole reason why they had beef in the first place, you just created that whole reason literally amongst hundreds of other characters in the game. Hundreds of other characters. And that's my problem with the game. Because, yes, you resolved maybe those two characters, but the resolution makes absolute zero sense when there's thousands of other characters who were involved and were affected by it, who could also make their decisions by it. So, like, unless you're going to make a Last of Us 1 through 100, the cycle of violence, and this is, again, this is coming from Neil Druckmann, makes absolute zero sense.
Right.
It's just like, yes, I understand there's a cycle, but if you're going to make a cycle, how about end the cycle? Instead of, hey, let's tell a story about how we somewhat end the first, two cycles between two people who had beef, instead of, hey, let's end it overall. Because then again, if the Fireflies existed and they went for the cure, then maybe they pushed for that, and then you end it overall amongst everybody. Instead, now you're like, shoot, Ellie has the Rattlers, the Wolves, and the Scars, and the Fireflies after her. So again, why does she walk back into Jackson? Because she jeopardizes everybody's life in Jackson just because she walks in there.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly the story they told, and that's exactly what they set up. So there's no conclusion. There's no conclusiveness to it at all. To me, it's just like you literally just made the video game to show immense amount of violence without really telling a story, without really driving home any point.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that to a point, but my thing is the violence that they were showing that was stopped was between those two specific characters. I mean, yes, there is issues of, well, why couldn't any other character just do the exact same thing? But that's not what the plot of this game was. And I know that opens up a freaking devil's hornet's nest of possibilities.
Yeah,
but I mean that's the same way of being like, hey, I mean, if you take it like this. Take it like this.
Truly conclude that, I agree with you. But when you take a bite of a Reese cup, you just taste the chocolate or the peanut butter. Yeah. You sit there and you take in the moment where you literally enjoy everything of the bite, the way the chocolate and the peanut butter taste.
See,
I think all I'm saying is maybe
I think if I compared it to like Star Wars or something, and this is where I think I would agree with you a lot. So if, like, let's say there was a character that was made for a specific Star Wars movie, his family was in the Death Star. Luke Skywalker blows up the Death Star. He's going after Luke Skywalker. He's going to kill Luke Skywalker. So then both of those characters decided, oh well, this is stupid, and a bunch of characters die, blah blah blah. They decided this is stupid, we're just going to let that go. If you then said to me, this is stupid because other people were also on the Death Star and they might want to kill Luke too, and this is just going to keep happening, then I would agree with you, because I'm like, okay, I understand that.
It doesn't. I get where you're coming from, but at that point, you literally have a group who is perceived as, and George Lucas would actually tell you that this was the idea of writing, that as a fascist group trying to more or less push their will amongst the whole galaxy. Luke is literally a beacon of light against anyone who is trying to more or less fight against.
He still killed millions of people, though.
I'm not saying that, but it's true that. But he is actually standing for you. You only have two groups at that point. In that story that you're telling, it's only black or white. The story The Last of Us is telling is literally black, white, red, green, blue, green, purple, orange, whatever thousands of other colors that you can come up with.
Yeah, I agree. That's my problem. I think the message is, like...
That's the only reason. That's what I'm alluding to. That's the problem I have with the story, and that's why I feel like it is dragged down towards the end.
Yeah, but I think the story's like everyone thinks they're doing right no matter what. Like, everyone thinks, yes, I am doing right. You killed that person. I'm getting revenge. But they don't think about everyone around them and how that affects everyone around them.
The repercussions. Right. Yeah. I agree with you. I agree 100% with you.
But I do agree with you. I do agree with you that, yes, that could happen with legit everyone in a video game setting. Yes.
I agree. Right. But the whole story...
Yes, is based on that one thing.
Is based off the repercussions of what Joel did at the end of Last of Us 1.
I agree.
So how can you not conclude that in The Last of Us 2? Yeah. That's my biggest problem, because you literally lived it open-ended, and the story that you told literally completely leaves it open-ended for what is happening within the actual context of the story told. And I don't see how, and I know it sounds crazy, I don't see how you cannot think of anything differently, because, like, the story they're telling in The Last of Us 2 can be extrapolated between every single AI, every single member, every single character that's actually given a name throughout that whole story to their adjacent loved one. And that's my biggest problem with The Last of Us 2, because it doesn't resolve a single thing except for two people in a world who are stuck on the West Coast. We don't know what the East Coast is doing. We don't know what Japan's doing. We don't know what Germany's doing. We don't know what England's doing. But yet, if Ellie would have taken that one moment, and let's say Abby, who, by the way, had a complete
180
moment with her father, who had the idea of solving what was causing this world to be a dystopian world in the first place, if they would just have a moment together and just been like, hey, look, we have a moment that we can actually solve this together. That to me is a fulfilling story. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And now, don't get me wrong, that's my story that I want to be told, and this is a story that they told, and that's all on them.
Yeah.
That's what they need to do. But when they tell that story, I just see so many holes in it. I think it collapses on itself. I think it makes no sense to some extent. And literally all you're playing is the game.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're just judging the game by the game. And by the game itself, you can find so many more experiences to me that are more enlightening, more fun, more playable than what The Last of Us 2 offers you, is all that I'm saying. And that's why I give it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Because if you're going to use a story to put it at 10 out of 10, and I think the story collapses on itself, then there you go. That's
If you don't like the story, then yeah.
So, and it's not that I like the story. I really think, and as you agreed with, it literally has so many holes and it collapses on itself. Like, I don't see how there's no other way around it unless, and I've been listening to so many other podcasts and I've read so many articles, and there's so many people that dissect other aspects of it, but they agree. They're like, what are we supposed to do with this? Like, what are you telling me? Unless you are right, where maybe this is just a 2 part of a 3, and the 3 will fully, bring everything together, wrap it up, tie a bow on it.
And I get the people who are like, this needs a sequel for it to be good. Like, I get that argument, and I don't think Last of Us should have even had a sequel. So like, just the fact that we did, I'm happy that we got it, but like, I don't think it needed a sequel, or at least an expansion on these characters.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, and I guarantee you we don't have too many people listen to this, and this is the one that you need to listen to because it's enlightening.
Right,
so,
we're not arguing.
I love you guys to come back to me. Because, like, at the end of the day, like, regardless, within the medium of gaming, The Last of Us 2 is phenomenal. Like, the animations, the personas that they take, the acting that they take, the world building as in the aspect of, and I'm going to say environmental world building, because the reason why I say that is because plot-wise, I think it collapse, it collapsed on itself. And that's what I was saying earlier. So, like, but that's what I meant. Like, there is few games that you're going to find who has as much attention to detail as this game has.
Yep.
And as love and character portrayal as it has per the characters. Because, like, Ashley Johnson did great as Ashley. Laura Bailey did great as Abby.
Yep.
And as much as Joel was in here, Troy Baker did great, and I'm sorry for all the other characters, but like Nora was phenomenal.
Yep.
God, it just left my mind. But whoever Troy was, for instance, was phenomenal. Not Troy. Owen.
Tommy.
Whoever Owen was.
Tommy, Owen, Jesse.
Tommy
they were
was
all
phenomenal.
Dina.
Yeah, exactly. All of them characters were phenomenal. Like, there's no question in my mind that this is one of the best portrayed games out there, and they did their job 100%. And the 10s out of 10s that have been awarded, I completely agree with you. Like, you're right on that point. Like, it's just some of the writing and some of the holes that maybe I'm just critiquing a little too hard, to be honest with you.
It could be. That's my thing. Like, everything, like, story-wise, I get story complaints. I understand that. Understand when people don't like where they go. Like even me, I don't like the ending to the game. Does that mean I hated the other 90%? No, I love the other 90%. So I would probably give it a 9. And I love the gameplay. I had one glitch. The entire game I had one glitch and I fell through the ground and it was really funny. But
I had
a once in a blue thing. And there was no loading screens, which was probably hidden through all those little tiny cracks that you had to crawl through. But
I had this section where Ellie's arm was bent and like broke behind her back for like the whole section. So
dang, that's cool. I had one to where I jumped. It was where you're going into the hospital, and I jumped up on the ledge because you had to jump on a ledge to get up there. and I lifted myself over the ledge, and then I fell through the ground. And then I was just flying through the world, and I just hear Ellie screaming. And I'm like, what's going on?
All right, so to wrap this up, because I really do gotta get off. I gotta eat some
go
tacos
ahead.
with my wife, and I guarantee you, super pissed if anybody hears this. But regardless of what I think and what Tanner thinks, or whatever the whole medium thinks, it is amazing to have this piece of art. That's all I want to say.
Yep.
And that we can
And
have this
I recommend playing. If you played the first one, you got to play this one, in my opinion.
I agree, 100%.
You're either gonna come away and you're gonna love it, or you're gonna come away and you're just not gonna like it. And that's just how it's gonna go. But that's everything. That is legit every piece of media. There is a lot of stuff that Keaton loves that I hate. For example, freaking Bloodborne and Dark Souls and all those games. I hate those games. I like feeling good about myself when I play games, so those aren't my cup of tea. And then I'm sure there's games that I play that Keaton would probably hate. Probably my wrestling games, but that's just me.
Now, that's more or less. That probably needs to be the theme and or the idea of our next podcast, because that could be a great podcast. But I just want to say this, Last of Us 2, regardless, even if I gave it a 7 out of 10, it's still a phenomenal game, and it should still be played and enjoyed, regardless.
I agree.
The only reason I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 is because I just think of things that came before it, and I just don't think they matched up with those things. They got 10 out of 10s, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So I don't understand how the 10 out of 10s get applied to this game, if that makes sense. And I truly, truly believe that Sony is, everybody complaining about Nintendo getting a bump. Sony is truly getting a bump now. I don't care what people think, but if it's a Sony first party game, even though Days Gone didn't review as well, but like this game in a nutshell, I just don't think it's 10 out of 10, regardless. And there's
I think Rockstar games are the same way, in my opinion. It's like, I think it's studio predicate. It's studio.
But the thing about Rockstar is people don't give it 10 out of 10 just because people think Rockstar has problems with like work labor issues, which Naughty Dog has problems with.
Exactly.
Now that's a whole different topic that we need to jump into maybe on the next podcast, because there is a bunch of issues with things along those lines, including Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog has been shunned by multiple outlets by saying how they have really bad work-related issues when it comes to creating this video game that we just enjoyed, for instance.
Right.
And that's a different situation with the actual product and the media that we just took in. But I'm just saying, enjoy it for what it is, regardless of what you think. Come up with your own mindset. And the 10 out of 10s that I keep coming back to, like I was kind of alluding to earlier, like I just think God of War, for instance,
was more deserving.
Yeah, exactly. The way they weaved in the narrative, by the way, including the what are they called? Not the Harpies, but the little angel people.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that you fight at the end. Yeah,
they literally wrote that into the narrative.
Yep.
They wrote the realms into the narrative. They wrote the side quests into the narrative to your ultimate goal. And to me, that was just like mind blowing. Yeah. Whereas this game did not do that. And that's what I mean as intent. Breath of the Wild, for instance. I don't care what people say, and I'm gonna die on this stuff. As of right now, Breath of the Wild is the best open world game that's ever existed. They went and they completely got rid of every boundary that you can possibly imagine in that game. And by doing that, they made the best open world game.
Yeah.
That's my dog barking, by the way. And that's what I mean by that. And it's kind of ironic because, like, I think Breath of the Wild gets a 10 out of 10, but the narrative and the story in Breath of the Wild is not good. You know what I'm saying?
Not.
Like, it's very A to B in that story. Like,
it is.
There's not much room for interpretation. And
no.
I understand that there's a lot of differences to that, but the gameplay in itself is so great, so strong. Like, the sense of discovery is so great that it overwhelms the fact that you even have a story at all in that game. And that's the only reason why I don't think this game deserves a 10 out of 10. And It's a possibility that this game don't, and the way I feel is because it's so late on PS4, and then maybe like we've already seen better told stories and better told use of technology.
Yeah, we're spoiled
with previous games.
We're spoiled.
But again, like I definitely think this game needs to be enjoyed. Like I think people need to play it. I think they need to come up with their own mindset. Like they need to come up with their own conclusions.
Yep. I mean, the way I see it is you're getting two different viewpoints right here. And if you feel like you're going to like my viewpoint rather than Keaton's, then I mean, you'll probably enjoy the game a little more. If you think that you're going to like Keaton's viewpoint more than mine, you're not going to like it as good. But, I mean, from everything that you told me, you're going to enjoy the game a little bit, even if you do hate the story a little bit.
I enjoyed the game.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the game. I just didn't look when it concluded.
You just wouldn't say it's a masterpiece.
I'll give you an example. If you watch a 2-hour movie, and the movie is telling a story, and it has absolutely no ending and no conciseness to it.
Yeah.
Then you're like, why the hell did I watch that 2-hour movie?
Exactly. I understand that.
That's how I feel. Like I just played this game for 30 hours. I enjoyed all 30 hours. And then I got to the end of it, and I'm like, what the hell happened?
Well, that was kind of fucking pointless.
Yeah, like exactly. And that's how I feel about
I understand that.
And that's what I mean by it. Now, don't get me wrong. Like taking the 30 hours and making your own decision. That's the whole point. That's why we have video games. That's why we have movies. That's why we have songs. Like it's for the individual person to take that in, take from it what you want, and make that conclusive decision yourself. Exactly. And I understand that 100%, and I'm all for it. So,
all right, Keaton, we're almost on the 2-hour mark, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
There's no way we went 2 hours.
1 hour and 50 minutes.
Dude, my boss will be so pissed. We gotta get some tacos.
Yeah, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But we thank you for listening to the podcast. Please comment below. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know who you agree with. Leave us a review. Leave us a subscribe. Everything helps. But we hope you enjoyed listening to the podcast. And Keaton, thank you for giving us your thoughts on Last of Us 2.
Yeah, man, thank you.
Yes, sir. All right. Have a good one, guys.
You too.